Konnichiwa, welcome to the Martial Maze. Our guest at this time has 55 years of uninterrupted martial arts training. He holds a 9th degree black belt in Kumite Ryu JuJutu, a 5th degree in ShotoKan Karate. He is the creator of the Streetology Jutsu fighting system, as well as the Woman Strike and Fight Self-Protection Self-Defense system. He has been featured in Karate Illustrated magazine in the late 1980s. Formerly of New York City, but now resides in a beautiful Atlanta, Georgia. Here to discuss with us realistic offensive attack response, R.O.A.R, that's the acronym, is none other than Malik Shabazz Hanshi. Konnichiwa, sir. Welcome to the Martial Maze.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm very honored.
Oh man, brother, it was crazy getting here, man.
Yeah. And again, thank you so very much. I appreciate that because you could have been doing a whole lot of other things. So.
No, not really.
Sorry to hear that.
Well, what you mean sorry? I love what I do.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that.
Listen, where else can I spend all my time traveling around, seeing all these great martial artists, past, present, and looking at the future of martial sciences and where things are going?
Yeah.
And then I wish my co-host could be here, but he's tied up back in Western Mass, taking care of things back at home.
Oh, okay.
Barack Alachidoshi, we always miss you, brother, especially when you're not in episodes. But we do miss you.
Yes. I look forward to meeting him.
Yes, because we're looking to do a Modern Combatives episode with you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And stuff like that. Because it's going to be geared around the home dojo, and you have a beautiful home dojo. And
thank you.
For those that are listening, you'll be able to see on some of the cover art. There will be some of the pictures of the home dojo. Kind of wish in a way we had a magazine because we could have it in the magazine too. But no, that's crazy. Hats out to once again the Deadly Art of Survival magazine, which currently is still the I want to say the number one
in the world.
Yes, right now in the world.
Yes.
So that they do the magazine thing. That's them.
Sir. Yes, sir.
We do podcasts and videos.
They're masters at it. Grand masters.
I'm like, man, listen, that's a heavy lift doing what they do. So we definitely appreciate them.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. And before we begin, if I may, I would like to extend my thank you to Odetta Russell, a.k.a. Both Swam, husband and wife. I'd like to say that. She, if it wasn't for her introducing us, this wouldn't even be going on. So I really want to extend my honest and thankful gracefulness for them even to allow me to meet you and be able to do this here. So thank you so much. I appreciate y'all, Swan family.
Oh yeah, man. Listen, she's great.
Yes.
You do know that she got the R.O.A.R at our
Yes.
Yeah, no, that was they came up, man, and that meant a lot because we were originally going to mail it out. She's had a phenomenal year, last couple of years actually. You know what I'm saying, and stuff like that, and what she does to female warriors. I mean, that's separate. You know, she's the queen of sword. I mean, you know her husband. Her husband's a beast, man. And
I know firsthand.
Well, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we've been in some scraps.
Yeah, so I'm like, yeah, man. I mean, so Cijo, and then we ended up doing the episode when we were doing the Swams when they took over our platform, but when we did I attempted that documentary, which folks tell me it came out really good. It was the first time ever doing it. Realizing that I had heard that story as an urban legend, like, because again, we're gonna talk about this a little bit later on. How New York shouldn't exist. It's just crazy the amount of things that happen in New York City that if you tried anywhere else, you'd be dead, or it just wouldn't work.
Yeah,
even the subway system.
Boy,
but or to be the working poor in New York. I mean, how do you survive? How do you really?
Yeah.
But So no. With that being said, that's you are. I think I said this off the air. I'm like, man, I like the fact that I came up underneath all of you guys. Like you guys are. I didn't train under you. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that my generation came after all the crazy shenanigans. All the stuff that you guys were doing in the name of. But we took something. I would say in the African American community, we took something that comes from somewhere else. And I really will tell you that we made it ours. Because someone once said to me, yeah, but the people wearing dashikis and they got the combat this on their gis and it takes away from all of that. And I was saying, we took it and we made it ours. What's wrong with that?
Yes.
I mean, look, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? They took something that was given to them from Japan and made a whole thing and made it theirs.
Right.
You understand? What's wrong with that?
Right.
There's nothing wrong
I
with that.
agree.
Even right now, so we are going to be doing, real quick, before we actually get into the meat of your episode, we are doing the 52 Blocks Revisited. That's coming up. We are still in the process of filming that because we've gotten so much heat over that 52 Blocks episode with Professor Mo. So I had to reach out to someone else in the prison system who was just kind of like, you do realize saying 52 blocks is like saying martial arts. There's different styles that have different influences. And yes, it comes from one thing, but because anybody who knows Professor Mo understands that he often talks about the 52 blocks were folks due to mass incarceration that came from Africa. There was training systems and there was training ways to fight, and then these folks all got, you went to jail. Right. And then in jail, it was refined. Yes. So it's not something that was created in jail. It was something that went to jail, and that's him. That's their federation. They're 50. I think he's 52 Blocks Federation. But if you talk to, there's another 52 Blocks. And again, I don't want to spit too much about it because, to be honest with you, I don't have my notes in front of me. And and the brother that's really taking lead on this, he was in the prison systems for over 20 plus years. And he actually was one of the instructors that taught officers how to deal with, just in case you had someone who, because these guys could bang. I mean, not only could they bang, they could take on 2-3 people. Yeah. So imagine me as a prison guard trying to bring in this dude, right? I'm like, so they had to constantly brief and upgrade the officers, the COs, so that they could deal with guys that were potentially they were just like, and I hate saying that because we as African Americans, we're always portrayed so negatively that when I make these statements, well, even in jail they had to upgrade because even in incarceration we were destroying the earth. Come on, man. I hate doing that. Yes. But yeah, we had to because we get so much. I still to this day. That episode dropped a couple years back, and I still get heat. Wow. Not only online, but I was out somewhere, and somebody reckoned, hey, man, you Israel Lopez Sensei, right? Like, said it like that, and I'm like, hey, I got all smiley. I'm like, hey, brother, how you doing? The man didn't want to shake my hand. He says, yo, you got it wrong with that. Like, he was ready to go all in. And I'm going, wow. Is this dude about to threaten me? What's going on with you?
There are so many different... I mean, I know personally like a bunch of different guys that do that 52 blocks, right? And my thing is, realistically, we adapt to the environment that we grow up into, and that I believe that's probably why there's so many different styles, if you will, of 52 blocks and karate and jiu-jitsu, etc. We adapt to where we live, and things change, and that's just the way it's going to be. So I respect that.
Yeah, no. So, all right. So let's get into it, man. I mean, like I said, so those were some of the side things for the folks. Sir. I mean, some people are like, man, that brother, he always talks fast. Where's Barack? Where's Barack? Barack normally reels him in. All right, so 55 years, right? So
yes, sir.
55 years uninterrupted. Now, explain to our listeners, what does that mean, uninterrupted?
Uninterrupted for me is like it's my lifestyle. Okay. I've had surgeries done, and it put me in a place where I wasn't able to train physically, but I trained mentally and spiritually by doing research. Okay. See, so training is not just a physical thing, because I believe that as we mature chronologically and we're not capable of doing certain things, if you do your notes, aka scrolls, you can pass that knowledge on without having to be able to get up and attempt to do a throw. And you're not capable of barely walking. So when I talk about interruptions, we both know many people that have trained for 20 years, stopped for 10, and came back, and now they got 5 back in, and they say, I've been training for 45 years. No.
Nah, brother.
No. You've been training 20 years. You took a hiatus at 10, and then you came back and did another 2-3 years. You can't add that 10 into the time you wasn't training. I have been training for 55 years of my life straight.
Well, that's awesome, man.
Yes,
That's,
sir.
you know, that's well. So basically, what you're telling us is that you're just a martial artist. You're not. Well, now when I say that, because there are plenty of people who don't understand what I mean when I say there's a difference between somebody who practices martial arts and then a martial artist. A martial artist is how you identify. That's who you are. That's it's part of you.
Yes.
As somebody who practices martial art, like again, I liken this to I know how to play basketball, but I will never be a basketball player. You understand what I'm saying?
Understood.
I mean, I understand, what a pick and roll is. I understand, how to
Right.
shoot, a
Right.
layup, all of that. But I
Yes.
can't. I will never be in the NBA.
Yes,
You
yes,
know what I'm
yes.
saying? Like,
Well said.
I have no desire to even be on a little kiddie league. It's just something I learned how to do.
Yes.
So that's why I always say is so not to be taken lightly. You are, and I think there is a definite split between somebody who practices. I know plenty of people who get their Shodan and they stop, or they don't, or the only time they practice martial arts is in the dojo, like somebody who goes to the gym and that's the only time they exercise is when they're in the gym.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then when they leave, it's okay, everything shuts back off
Right.
and they're back to doing whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I take it, even being in your home, that you take your approach. Everything you do is geared around living in a martial way.
Yes.
Martial arts.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're a martial artist.
I live it, and not just martial arts per se. Like I call myself a martial practitioner, and the difference to me is that I do more martial than I do art. So there's nothing pretty about that, right? Because there's nothing pretty about violence and war. Nothing. So I don't use the art aspect in my. I call myself a martial practitioner, and the people that trains with me are not artists. They are survivalists, right? And they want to be able to get home at night, whether they've been accosted by someone or they felt threatened by one. When you leave out of my presence, if you came for one day, you've got something that can help you to get home at night.
Okay, I love that. I like that. I like that you're like, nah, man, no, we're survivalists. I'm like,
yes.
And I do like the fact that you're, because like what's going on in the real world right now, the two wars that are kind of happening right now. But yeah, war is not pretty. And
Not
I
at
think
all.
sometimes people forget. I feel like our people never forget because we're constantly at war. But I mean, that's a whole topic for another time.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, I mean, fighting, like I said to you off air, it's the most serious thing I can do, which is why I try not to do it.
Yes,
You know what I'm
yes,
saying, and
yes.
stuff like that. So
Yes. And being athletic has another puts another spin on top of being a martial practitioner, right? Because the way that you carry yourself, the way that you present yourself, the way that you live your life, the way what you consume in your body, the whole it's a big collaboration of stuff. It's not just I put on a gi and I go and I spar. I put on a gi and I go and I throw. I put on a gi and I go and I lock. Nah. I'm talking about the way you carry yourself the moment you get up out of bed to the moment you lay back down in your bed. It's a presence that you carry about yourself, And, being able to be a survivalist, like in your training, is a totally different mindset as opposed to going in the dojo and being a martial artist. And
I agree.
I'm only talking from my own personal experience.
Konnichiwa. I'm Israel Lopez Sensei of the Martial Maze. Right now, you might be asking yourself, what is the Martial Maze? Well, I'm here to tell you. The Martial Maze is a martial arts podcast that deals with the complexities and pitfalls that one encounters when navigating the field of study that is martial arts. These discussions are from the points of view of actual martial artists, and we cover it all, with the occasional special guest, who of course are masters in their fields of study. From the president of the United States Judo Association to karate and kung fu royalty. Myself and Barakulat Shidoshi have over 40 plus years of martial experience. So please join us as we make our way through the Martial Maze. New episodes drop weekly, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. No, I do. I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, that's that's all of it. You know what I'm saying? When there are plenty of guys out there that, including myself, it's one of them things where when you're training to always be at an elite level of competitiveness, which is very different than real life, And, well, no, let me walk that back. No, because if you're training to address whatever violence you're going to address in the real world, then it is. You are at that elite level, right?
Right.
You're paying attention, always watching your six, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. And there are plenty of guys out there. Barack and I were talking about someone ways back that who said, well, you don't need all that conditioning. Why do you do all that conditioning? In the dojo, the push-ups, some sit-ups, all that other good stuff. And Barack and I would kind of, and I know this from personal experience doing nightclubs. I watched a guy who was a seasoned competitor, did all this other good stuff, but had been off the game for a little bit. He was working security with me, and look, I think they rushed the stage. It was Insane Clown Posse and stuff like that. We were working at a venue where we were kind of at the wall, working security, and apparently they one of their songs they'll have people rush the stage. So imagine being a bouncer. You're trying to stop your security. I will never call it bouncing, but we're security and we're trying to stop.
Right.
And this dude who's right next to me, you know what I'm saying, as the 10th kid is getting wheeled back into the crowd because we were just tossing him back into the crowd, I could tell he's, and it's now this is real. And he ended up going down, and the kids end up rushing the six. And now it took 3 of us to get him out. You know what I'm saying? So we stopped what we were doing instantly. And it was just And it goes back to because I'm very long-winded. It goes back to exactly that conditioning that one needs to have. Because in a real life situation. The adrenaline starts pumping right away, and how many times have you gotten into a real fight? And you're really exhausted. You're like, oh man.
See, that's the part that separates and the practitioner from the artist, in my personal thing, because there's a lot of people that go to the dojo, let's say on a regular basis, and I'm not talking about anyone specific. I'm just throwing it out, right? But when the last time you gave your sparring partner permission to punch you in your mouth and just come straight through, right? It changes your whole outlook on the way that you move. It takes away from the way that you train in terms of your breathing. It takes away from the way that you hit and the way that you get hit. So the practitioner, like the people that train with me at this level of where I'm at, and I'm talking, when I say level, I'm talking about my mindset has evolved drastically from when I was training 10 and 20 years ago. Like what I'm doing today will get you home quicker and sooner than when I was teaching and training 10, 20 years ago, right? Because everything that I do evolves. The less is more with target acquisition, breath, and accuracy. And with conditioning, it's like putting the cherry with the sprinkles on your cake. Absolutely. There's no way that you can survive without conditioning.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, think about that. Like, when is the last time you walked in? Anyone, even folks listening to this, if you walked into the dojo and you seriously thought that Sensei was going to kill you or the people you were going to work out with, anytime it got to shit, it was no longer going to be Ron Dury. Yes. But we're going to kill you. Listen, when I get you in the Juji Gatami, either one or two things are going to happen. Either you're going to get out, or I'm going to break your arm.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if that became the mindset? A lot of people would stop training.
Either that or those that have the mindset to be able to incorporate that will be changing. It changes you.
Well, yeah, it changes the game instantly. Because now you're going into a heightened level of fear. It's like in the military, right? When they got the live fire and stuff like that. Like, I've never been in the military. I'm just referring to what other folks have said.
Okay.
About when they do the live fire drills. Apparently this happens. And I could be wrong. No, because that would mean I was being lied to. But these live fire drills where you had to keep your head down. Then if you stood up, well, obviously, live fire drill, you might get shot in your head. You know what I'm saying? And they talk about some people wash out at that point, so they panic because now it's real gunfire, it's real live fire. You know what I'm saying? And stuff like that. Now, obviously, you keep your head down because we're in the military. I hope they're not trying to kill us. But getting you to that mindset, you know what I'm saying, where, yeah, man, you could be getting killed. I do know for like special forces, and this part I do know. And that's, we had a handful of guys that I was training with at one point in time, and these were all special forces guys, and I see absolutely no reason why they would lie. And like that about some of the training, drowning and stuff like that, where like, look, man, either you get out or you drown. I mean, yeah, people will rescue you, but you will drown. You know, like they will be doing the respiratory to get you to come back to life, but you are going to drown.
Wow.
And stuff like that. So like they were talking about some of the other drills that they've done. And this was just so that you can perform under that level of duress. You know what I'm saying? Because that kind of a stressor is going to be different.
Yeah. That's like a person that is a marksman. They go to the ranges, indoor, outdoor, either or, and they can shoot a perfectly bullseye all the time until they got someone shooting back at them.
Yeah.
Now things change because stress inoculation is going to set in on us, man. There's nobody exempt. We all human beings first.
Yes, yeah.
And when I'm working with my training partners, I don't call them students. I call them training partners. And the reason why I use that terminology is because a lot of times when we're doing certain things, I'll see them do something. I'll say, stop. I want to add in what you just did, unbeknown to you. So I don't use that term student. But suffice it to say, when we moving around and they punch me in my face and they like, I said, no, thank you. Mm-hmm. Because if you could punch me in my face and I can continue to go with it, we both learned something.
Yeah.
So I never said, like, stop. Oh, your lips bleeding. No. When it's finished, your lips bleeding. Go and wipe it. Yeah. So the mindset. I know to a lot of people, like when you hear me talk about what I do, it's like, this dude is sick. But there's sick people in the world.
Oh, no, I was going to say, man, that's why you don't train in a gi.
Yes.
Because in my mind, I'm like, well, hold up, man. Them white gis cost money, man. Yeah. And that blood don't typically come out.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, too, with this is that, like, being realistically, mindset for the street is that the pajamas and the belts and the pretty mats with the well-lit dojo with some nice heat coming out just don't exist on the concrete. It's unforgiving.
Oh, yeah. Well, you realize real quickly certain techniques that work really well because even tatami mats have a little give.
Yes.
And so you can slide, but no, concrete doesn't. so when you try to adjust.
Yeah, but, I coming from a jiu-jitsu background with, like I mentioned earlier about the jumping off the desk and the rolls. And I remember being on 123rd Street, training with Master Kaijo. I call him Kaijo Little John Davidson. And I was emulating myself holding my groceries and/or baby, and I couldn't flap out. So I'm up in the air, and I have to take the free side, but I couldn't let my hands go because I have groceries and/or baby. That was my thought at the time. But when you're doing that on a regular basis, the mat was only about this thick with concrete underneath.
Well, I'd always say, but I think sometimes a lot of times that we forget that in things like judo, the reason why we learn to fall that particular way isn't so that we can survive being thrown once. It's so that we can survive being thrown the 344 freaking times I'm going to get thrown in practice.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Yes. I mean, because I'm like, in real life, you don't feel it in most cases,
right,
unless you get smashed good and proper.
Right.
But even when we teach, so one of the things, again, things that come from martial arts, but not really, I have a friend of mine who deals with elderly folks. And when she was talking about how they teach elderly people how to fall and how it was very similar to the way I teach falling. But she says, with certain caveats. She says, look, older person, they reach their arm out to smack that way, they're going to break their arm.
Right.
And they'll end up with more, I fallen and I can't get up. So instead to relax. So everything else I was doing, and it had me go back and really think, because I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is the way. And researching, this is the only reason why I'm saying this now, because if you met me 5 years ago, I'd have been telling them, no, in judo, you smack with the arm and the leg. And I would have been saying that verbatim and saying there's something wrong with you. But it's realistically, well, no, that fit the culture of being thrown repetitively as in real life. No, I want to be able to kind of fold into it and take at least impact and enroll, disperse that energy. And so, and it all makes sense. So I was like, oh.
And so kudos to you for the evolution of your training.
Yes.
Right? Because the person that's in the back seat of a car that's drunk will survive the crash as opposed to the driver that's going to do this when he sees the crash coming. You know? So, yeah,
No, there might be a little truth to this. So, I belong to a running club. It's called hashing. And I'm not talking about hashish. Those that in TV land that are listening to us right now, and it's hashing. It's done all over the world, actually. Has a lot of military. Comes from most hashers are military. Sometimes referred to as a running club with a drinking problem or a drinking club with a running problem. It depends on how you want to look at it. But we were doing a trail, and my one of my former students. Well, actually, he will always be a student. He still calls me coach and stuff. But I'd say he's one of my best friends, and so he was my best man at my wedding. But we had scouted out the trail. We had haired it, and my wife was coming down, and if she had been intoxicated, she might not have broken her ankle in 3 places because she tried to catch herself as she was falling. It was just, sorry, it's a long-winded running joke that we had because she really did. She ended up slipping on ice, and even the other folks, the other people that were there were like, if she had been a little more intoxicated,
relaxed.
because she only had like one seltzer in her during the hike and stuff like that. That's sounding really bad as a martial artist and talking about alcohol in running. I can't fathom running anywhere now without a beer. I'm sorry. I really can't. Well, I don't need, actually, I take that back. I don't drink beer. I drink them seltzers. I like the seltzer. I don't partake in beer.
But it's the relaxation, right? When I talked about evolving for myself in my teachings, right? It was some transition coming from a ShotoKan background going into a jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Coming from this, learning how to be, like you said,
Lucy. Yeah, Lucy.
Talking about the landing, right? As we were taught then, not falling, but the landing aspect and the slapping out. I was always told it breaks your fall. There's no way of thinking, man. How can slapping out break your fall? When gravity pulls you down, whatever your weight is times 2. So how can your hand slapping the mat break your fall? It's not true. It only prepares your body for the trauma that's about to happen. So that's what the vibration does from slapping out. It's not, how can it break your fall? It's the thing is that, like, we hear things that sound good and we run with it instead of doing the research.
Yeah, that there is a lot of truth to that, which is kind of funny sometimes. I have heard it both ways. I've heard that that the smacking does do that. It helps prepare your body for the shock. It's kind of like the double tap.
Yes.
If I want you to contract, I tap you first, then punch.
Yes.
And stuff like that.
Yes.
And then boom, then I get the desired response. But I've also heard that it's also been explained that because in like something like Nagi no Kata, which is one of the katas in judo, we don't do the same. That smack doesn't happen. It's a solid smack, and it just disperses the energy. And so, where I would pick the arm back up, that was for a whole different reason. And it led me to get that information. Why am I picking my arm back up then? Why in kata do I leave it on the mat and just lay, boom, and then I sit up? When I'm practicing smacking and then bringing my hand back up. And they said, well, what comes after? Is the fight over when you've hit the ground? And you're like, well, no, exactly. So what would you do with your hands? And now enters something that you might get from BJJ. Where do I want to fight? Do I want to fight in a prone position or do I want to be facing you? So now I smack, I'm facing you. You understand?
Right,
and then I can go into the grapple. I can go into the, I can address anything coming at me and then get myself back up if I want to go back to standing right away, right? And so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it makes perfect sense. Like, you're doing kata, and this application bunkai to the kata. So you might spin up in the air and land a certain way, like in unsu. But in that miss, there's some bunkai missing that you don't see because the kata doesn't show that. And so that's where the research comes into play, man. The locks that I was taught coming up is completely different from the way which I'll be talking about, Hanshi Morales, which is a Goju-Ryu stylist from Okinawa. He trains with Hokama Sensei, which has been a mentor to me to a whole nother level. But his applications of the locks and body alignment with breath and proper hand placement tuite is incredible, you know. And so what I do now is I implement that in what I do when I teach, because we have to steadily evolve, you know. And by me evolving, if I can make something more effective with less movement, with less aggression, with less striking, oh man, I'm hopping on it. You know, there's nothing wrong with something working and improving on it.
The Martial Maze presents the Modern Combative series on YouTube. The Martial Maze takes an in-depth documentary-style approach to not only the martial arts techniques found in the systems, but the practitioners of those very systems as well. With over a combined 50-plus years of martial arts experience, Barack Yalin Shidoshi and Israel Lopez Sensei endeavor to explore it all as they travel the United States, exploring modern combative systems. New Season 3 episodes coming to YouTube September 16th, 2023. So be sure not to miss the Martial Maze Presents Modern Combative series on YouTube.
Well, yeah, I mean, realistically, I mean, like a friend of mine, Haskins Sensei always talks about being more pragmatic, right? And it sounds like you're doing what any good martial artist would do. You start breaking it down. You start questioning what we've been taught, you know, and the things that don't make sense. You start trying to figure out, well, okay, am I misinterpreting this, or why doesn't it make sense? You know what I'm saying? Well, what are we addressing? This is where a lot of folks. So in my case, I had the benefit of learning kata as 2-man, and then learning the dance afterwards. I call it the dance afterwards because that's when you're doing kata without bunkai, or without even thinking about bunkai, then all you're doing is dancing.
Yes,
You know, and I get plenty of people who get into an argument with me about it, want to debate the issue. Look, man, you get that beautiful trophy, that's nice and all, but I care about being able to survive and using this information. And again, when we're doing kata, we're just learning information.
Yeah.
And the example, it's like I like using math for this. It's like learning a basic multiplication, right? You learn that with that X, that's the sign for multiplication. So anytime you see that, there's an X, and then you see the 5, and then you see a 4, and now you know you go for memorization. You know 5 and 4. You know what the values are, and then you add. And so it's an example of this 5 times 4 or 4 times 5, however you want to look at that, equals. You know what I'm saying? And then you get you're 20, right? And that's the example.
Yes.
You know, so you're going to go 4 5 times or 5 4 times. Okay, great. And that's an example. So when I'm learning the kata with the bunkai, that bunkai is the example that's being given for this particular principle.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Now, once I understand this, and I bring this back to something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or just even in Judo, framing. Like once I understand framing and how to create frames when I'm grappling with someone on the ground, then my imagination will allow me to do a ton of other things based upon the principle of framing.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And maybe you might show me, well, look, man, when even in regular karate, right? Guy throws a front punch at you. Well, one's the first thing we tell everybody to do: move. If you forget nothing else. Move. Well, what's one of the first katas you learned? The Taisabaki kata.
Yes.
It's a movement. To move. Well, why do I learn this really crappy kata? This is ridiculous. How many times have you heard somebody say that? Why am I learning how to move? And what's the first thing somebody does when a punch comes at them? They either try to swat it down or they step directly back trying to swat it down.
Right.
And then they wonder why they get hit every time.
What is that? Wax on, wax off.
Yeah, exactly. But even when Miyagi was teaching him with the wax on, wax off, he forgot to tell Danielson to move.
Yeah. Well, you gotta crawl before you walk.
Well, here's the thing: the car can't hit you if you ain't in the if you ain't there.
You're 100% correct. 100% correct. And so with that, right? Like I don't teach blocks.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is deflect and or redirect. And the reason behind my principles, not theories and concepts, but principles of this is because if you're gifted to live to 99 years of age, you can always deflect and redirect the strongest of man, because once he brings that fist out, we can't control this. We can't stop our shoulder girth from doing this. I don't care how hard you can't stop the shoulder girth because there's a ball and socket such as the hip, and you can't stop that from doing this, no matter how much you try. And with that said, you can always deflect and redirect with very little strength. So I'm thinking, if I'm gifted enough to be able to live to a ripe old age, I can still do what I do because I don't need the strength to do it.
Well, yeah, no, yeah.
No.
Maximum efficiency, minimum strength and effort. I love throwing the judo acronym.
Perfect.
Throwing the little judo stuff in there, I'm like, yeah.
Yes,
Everybody asks me, why you teach judo? And I'm like,
yes, yes.
No, judo sayings or judo proverbs. I always forget how to know what they're actually called. But they're governing. I can't now. I'm brain farting. Right? They're governing statements or governing rules in judo: maximum efficiency, minimum strength,
Yes,
and efforts. And yokozenyu, and then we have my favorite one is jutekei, and that's a mutual benefit.
Okay.
So, mutual benefit, or you and I shining together. That's how Phil Porter used to say it. I still say it that way too. Yeah.
Nice.
You
I
and
like
I
that.
shining together. Yeah.
I like that.
Well, because look, you're only as good as your training partners, right?
Right.
And what did you just say? If earlier you were saying if I'm training with my training partner and he punches me in the head, I learned something.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. And exactly that in judo. If my training partner is constantly communicating with me, not just verbally and physically. If you're breaking my balance routinely and never telling me why, I never get better and you never get any better. All you learn is how to break my balance.
Right.
You know how to break Israel's balance. Doesn't mean you're going to break Marcus's balance.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So helping me get a better understanding, you're leaning too much here. It helps me understand my balance, because realistically, I always tell this to folks, judokas are realistically masters at keeping their balance. They're right up there with sumo wrestlers. Try off balancing a sumo wrestler and see how well that works out for you. You know what I'm saying? And that's because we literally we understand that in order to throw someone, I need three things: kazushi, sakuri, and then maikake. Some would argue there's ma'ai and riai, which is the timing and distance, to the engagement.
Right.
I'm referring to the engagement. Now, kazushi could be you just striking at me. Well, you're striking at me, you have to be off balance. You have to bring your body forward in order to strike at me. Even if you're trying to strike and keep your body stable, you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
As soon as that arm leaves, now you are. You are now off balance. And then we're masters at catching that, right? And we're masters on making your balance and my balance one balance. And now we're going to take us both and keep us off balance. And it, you know what I'm saying? I love that.
Yes.
It's great.
Yes.
I see it in my head, and it's just like swirling around. And we're like, and we've segued all over the place. All right, so the main topic today, though, that I want to circle back to, because we haven't even really gotten into it, man. We've been like, I'm like, look, brother, I could talk to you for hours, man. All right, so, and we were already talking an hour beforehand, almost, right?
Wow, just about.
All right, so let's get into R.O.A.R, the acronym R.O.A.R. So what is it? Break it down.
R.O.A.R is realistic application on a target coming at you. What it is what I created there in sense is, the worst type of attack is an ambush. And the reason behind the reason why the ambush is the worst thing is because it's sudden. And so most human beings flinch like in a manner that is startling to them. Usually the hand goes up and we take that deep breath. I repetitiously train myself and my training partners not to do that. And I believe that what we do repetitiously is what we're going to do when we get in the street, right? Because if you keep training in a manner that's defensive. I don't use that terminology, defense, at all. I'm always, and the people that train with me are always offensive. In other words, there's been many times, I can't even number the times that I've been getting in or out of the elevator, going up and down maybe the stairs, or turning the corner, or being in the gym, and someone's right up on me. I'm moving.
Mm-hmm.
I'm moving. Luckily, I can honestly say I never struck anyone, but I'm always moving. I don't like turn around and you're there and I say, oh, nah. And numerous times that this happens is because of the way we do our response drills. And my training partners are the same way, both male and females. If I tell you to punch at me or lunge at me with the knife straight and you go to slash, we don't get stuck slash because we're anticipating you to stick me. We are in a position where we can flow with you. Mm-hmm. So whatever you come with, unorthodox, we should be able to get off it. Okay. And that's where the R.O.A.R comes in. The R.O.A.R is being able to have movement without thought. Like rubbing your eye, like if you have an itch, you don't think about it, you just move. It's second nature. And so being able to train in R.O.A.R is second nature. You should be able to be moving without thought. When you turn the corner, somebody's coming at you, or just somebody's just happen to be walking, and when you turn that corner, which should never be sharp, it should always be wide, but you happen to turn the corner and they just happen to be walking, you should be moving. Not to punch them in the face, don't misunderstand me, but you should be in a position where you can be able to get off.
So you should be able to address it.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically you're working through the stressors. So I always call those the 4 F's: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. That's how we deal with stress, right? Those are the major ways of dealing with stress.
I have literature right in there because I do every couple of weeks or so. I can't think of the name. Excuse me. So I write down. You can see in the lab where we train the lab. I have stuff that I write down on a regular basis because I don't want us to just be physically like we just doing things. I want you to know why you're doing things. So those 4 phases that you were alluding to is exactly what I'm talking about. Every human being is going to experience fear. How we respond to that fear is totally different.
Yeah. So no, that's what I was about to get into. So it sounds more like you're training folks to get to minus the last 3, because most people are the last 3.
Yes.
There are very few people that are fight. You have to actually train to be fight.
Yes.
And even then, it's you're really ignoring the flight response and just moving yourself forward.
I just want to interject for a minute. I'm not teaching you to fight, right? I want to clear this up. I'm teaching for you to be able to be responsive. Like if someone's you turn the corner, you get off in or out of the elevator, someone's throwing a punch, right? I'm not talking about being able to fight him. I'm talking about being able to not get hit. It's a huge difference, right? Now we're iologists, right? And so I hear people say, oh, man, you can't really jab to the eye under duress and all of that. But it depends on how you train as an individual.
Yeah, wait a minute. Somebody said you can't what?
I'm not even going to mention names because this is someone that has their own system and they're making lots of money. So, but I believe that, coming up in the hood, I've been raised in the projects.
Well, are they referring to like fine tuning strikes?
Yeah, like, in other words, there's some things that just ain't going to work under stress. And so that's his analogy, and I respect it. But if you've never been in my shoes, if you never trained with me, then you can't say that.
I would say you can't base where I see both sides of the argument. You can't base the exception, and the exception doesn't make the rule.
Right.
However, if I train 1,000 people this way, and 1,000 people are effectively doing it, when does the exception begin to become the rule? You understand what I'm saying? That's the other side of that.
Yes.
Because then it's clear that you might in your life. I get where we always want to base things off of our own personal experiences.
Right.
But as a martial scientist, or even exploring the martial arts, and the way we all should as martial artists, it's not just my journey, it's our journey. So now it begins, especially if I take on the mantle as teacher.
Right.
Well, I'm a big dude. I address violence in a whole different way than my. That's why I wish Barack was here, because Barack is a tiny dude. Barack is 100, and I want to say 104. Yeah, because he fought one weight. He'd be fighting one weight class lighter than my daughter. So yeah, so he's got to be like about $150. You know, because she fought at 160.
Okay.
So, but yeah, 150. 150. I outweigh him by over 110 pounds now. So, but he's going to address violence differently. He's going to address these things differently. So if he bases all his experiences based on his level of understanding, then he could never teach a big guy how to fight.
Right.
You know,
and that is paramount, right? Because the way I teach and train now is like life years away from the way I used to. And the reason is, even though the pillars are the same for us, I teach each person that trains for me, both male and female, as individuals, right? Because just as you was talking about, you might be a little heavier, this might be a little taller, this one might have natural abilities, this one might not, and it takes a little bit longer for them to understand and appreciate what it is. But I teach everyone separately for their own individuality.
It's got to fit them, yeah.
Right? And so, but if someone is if you get off the elevator and someone's swinging, if we could deflect and redirect and get off of that, you can run.
Well, yeah, well, you're still talking about a principle, though. Like the principle is to redirect.
Right.
How'd you say that
Deflect
again?
and redirect.
Deflect and redirect, and that's the principle.
Right.
And that principle is a one size fits all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Now, some person. So sometimes when I say fight in the flight. And I think fight gets confused for fight physical, like just going into the fight. Fight just, I would want to say, and I almost feel like I need a clinical psychologist to really be here to break all this down for us. But a psychologist, yeah, who would say that when I'm referring to when I say fight, it's a whole lot of other things. It means that I am going to be responsive, not just in a combative way, but it would be maybe to understand what's coming at me, get the perception of threat, not to shut down, and then yes, if the path to least resistance is to run, I'm going to run.
Right.
If it means to take your hand as the door shut and slam your body into the door,
yes,
and then put it's how I'm going to address it.
Yeah,
but
it's sort of You go up to the second floor. I can't think of the thing that'll come to me as I'm talking. You go up to the second floor. There's a fire behind you, and there's 3 doors. And then you got to go to each door to find out which one you can go through, as opposed to there's a fire behind you, get up to the second floor, and there's 1 door. You know, it's escaping me.
Konnichiwa. This is Israel Lopez Sensei. If you like listening to The Martial Maze, you might seriously want to think about becoming a supporter of this podcast. To do so, simply click on the support button. With a small monthly donation of $1, you will help support future episodes. Thank you once again for your support, and thank you for listening. Yeah.
So, but that going up to the second floor and there's 1 door, boom.
Yeah, you just go right through it.
Right? Without having to go to the 1, 2, 3. So I prefer to have that type of training where that you go through that 1 door as opposed to having 3, right? So I don't believe in teaching like an abundance of different, I don't use the term technique, I use the term application. I don't believe in teaching a bunch of stuff, right? Unless you're fighting every single day, how much do you need?
So again, I always bring myself back to quote Haskins Sensei, because it did it like his books are pretty profound, and some of the things when you break it down, it's one. That's why I started saying tool technique. That the analogy is still the same. I love that because when he talks about it, and it made sense. That's why I started doing it myself, because it said, well, once you learn the mechanic of a tool and how to utilize a tool, then your imagination can allow you to assimilate that mechanic any which way. It's kind of like a simplest example, a hammer, right? You learn how to use a hammer, right? You learn what the back end of a hammer can do. It's something fairly new that I learned that I didn't know a couple of years ago was the part that you pull the hammer out, the nail out.
Yes.
You can actually put the set a nail. Didn't know that. Like,
New to me.
Yes. If I need to set a nail, I use that part to set the nail, and then I could. Anyway, so the
Wow,
whole point
okay.
is, but the mechanic, yeah, it's cool, man. Like, it's like, oh, wow, I learned, I'm 5 million years old. I'm learning this today. But yeah, so you can take the hammer, right? You put the nail, boom, 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 and you learn how to use the hammer and get the nail in. Now, what happens if you don't have a hammer, but you still need to get a nail in the wall, right? You take something hard,
Right,
and you
right.
use the mechanic of you, because now you understand how to use that tool, which
Right.
you can take that mechanic or that governing principle around that tool and utilize it for other things.
right.
Your imagination allows you. And I always think that when you see somebody who has 5 million different techniques, because then you break it back down, it still falls into one
Right.
tool is being used here. What's governing all of this? You understand what I'm saying? And that should dictate what you do next. Now, you can make it. I'm sorry, my man. My mind is still back on the person saying that you can't strike someone in the eye.
I'll tell you off.
Yeah. We'll have
yeah.
to do a deep dive on that one, because that one that baffles me.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I've heard that being said with folks when they talk about firearms and why you can't shoot somebody under duress. And that some of that makes sense to me, but I would say that's for the layman. For what we do as martial artists, what we train for, remembering that this what we come with, all of this martial arts, even the word itself comes from the military.
Yes.
It's not even Japanese or Chinese. It comes from Europe and stuff like that. And it's about the god of Mars, and it's the art of war.
Yes,
war,
sir.
making
Yes.
war, and how we deal with combatives.
Right.
Period. Full stop. And taking a lot of what we do, believe it or not, is military regimented. Why we sit in stance, why we're broken down and built back up. When you get somebody, and this is for the folks that go to any kind of air quotations traditional dojo, where yes sensei, no sensei, and you're standing there and think about it, yes sir, no sir,
Yeah.
about face, left mark, all the
Right,
things that
right.
fit the modern military. These things are built into the culture of the military, because a lot of these things come directly from the military. Don't pass go, don't collect $200.
Right.
And it depends on what origin story you want to go with, whether these were peasants that were taught military style stuff, what we were taught in these were actually military people and they were taught stuff, or they were aristocrats that were taught stuff. All those things are true. All those origins are actually true. All these things can be
Right.
true, and they are, depending on where you want to pick them up from. But when we look at the modern day dojo, and what we see in the modern day dojo is very much military. It's militarized in such a way to make you not think for yourself, and to get you to be able to do a certain thing up to a certain skill set. And then remember, think about this. Yes or no, sir, until ShotoKan. And then we start telling our students to what? Think for yourself. Question. Explore. Now, remember, that's why we always say, after ShotoKan, you become a student. You are now accepted student. Right? I mean, how many times have we heard that, right? I mean, even myself, it wasn't until after ShotoKan that my instructor says to me, I don't want you to ponder the universe. Here's some books. Bring it back to me and tell me what you thought. Not what you think I want to hear, but what you thought. And
Right.
then at that point, I said, oh.
Right.
All those moments,
mind
right?
start opening up.
Well, yeah, and you start going through, I would say, the growing pains, if you will.
Yes.
And stuff like that. And I really think that's kind of where a lot of this stuff goes. And, man, I can't believe that's going to bother me. That's literally still sitting in the back of my head. And literally all my thought was hell bent on it. I'm actively listening to everything else you're saying and going back to what?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Even in the
But
military, they got marksmen.
A lot of times we as martial artists and et cetera, we become we think what we do is the bomb and that's it. So we don't look outside. We don't try to grow. This is it. Nah, this ain't it. The world
This
is
my
huge.
truth. Yeah,
the world is huge. And if you don't have that parachute mind where it's open to learn more, you're just gonna stay right there.
I get that we're all trying to. I think that in some folks, and I wouldn't say all of us, I would say that some folks are trying to market their thing, and I guess in such a way, even myself. So
yes.
Judo is any and everything to me, because I learned judo as a martial art in the sport second. So I try to live in the do all the time now. I'm trying to understand the way. Yeah, I get the physical stuff is nice, but there's a whole the founder of judo really, and I still liken this back to, it's something I've said online, and you'll continuously hear me say it. I think it had more to do with the fact that he was coming up in a time with Hitler and World War II, and Japan was on the wrong side of that. And what he ultimately realized is that, look, man, we just need to be all better people. And if he could make better people, one person at a time, and I get it. People are like, well, he was just trying to bring judo everywhere. But I said, realistically, wouldn't that be the end goal? Like, if you and I, we can only become a better species as people, as human beings, if you and I learn to coexist together. And that we're always looking out for. And it's not. And think about even in battle times. I'm not fighting for me. I'm fighting for the man next to me. Yeah. And stuff like that. Like and you take those concepts and you apply those to your everyday life. Now we're going back to religion. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. Like, come on, man. I'm like, so he wasn't saying something that was brand new. He took something that was old and he made it new, but he might have been living in it in real time. And understanding that, we just need to be better people.
Everybody's going to get hurt in the, one way.
Yeah, if we don't. Yeah.
I use on one of my banners on the bottom, and I'll show you in the lab. It says world peace through training. Because if you had a nice workout in the dojo, you go to the gym, track, whatever it is that you do, biking, when you finish having a great workout, you're literally exhausted and at peace.
Yeah, and you feel good.
And you ain't thinking about this guy that gave me the cross. So world peace through training.
I love that. That's awesome. Man.
World peace through training. But I want to get back to the R.O.A.R, if I may.
Yeah, because I do want to touch base on Streetology Jutsu.
So Streetology is street, and the ology is the Greek terminology, that means the study of. Mm-hmm. So coming up in the Bronx and Harlem, throughout all of my training and stuff, Streetology was born in 1990 when I was accosted by two people on 145th Street in Harlem, and getting ready to go home one summer evening. And as I'm walking home, it was a beautiful evening, just left my friend's house. We was watching some boxing matches. Two guys were walking towards me, but I didn't think nothing of it. And one of them punched me in my face and split my eye, and I dropped to one knee, and then everything just went. And stepped over both of them. I can't tell you he did this, I locked him. I don't remember none of that. All I remember is stepping over them, and they and I was able to get home, right? That's when my Streetology Jutsu was born. And the reason is, although all of my training fed me well, I think I could have been better. Mm-hmm. I think I could have ended it quicker. And that's when my evolution started coming along, and that's where Streetology Jutsu came into play, right? And one of the things that's most paramount in my teaching and training is social awareness.
Okay.
Like, avoidance is key. You could be a gold belt, 24-karat gold belt. If you never had to throw a punch or never had to be in the way of a punch. 24-karat gold. 25th Dan, right? If your self-awareness was better, you can avoid so many different things.
But I don't know. I don't know. You got a 24-karat. I think violence is going to find you no matter where you go.
They're trying to take your belt, right?
Yeah, right.
But that's key, particularly with the women, right? I see, certain things with women doing wrist locks and man, listen, if you, brother, was aggressively or a little deranged, and you went after a woman like this, I don't care if she's 10th dawn, and you went with her, can she wrist throw you?
All right. So the way to answer your question, no, she would die.
Yes.
And but I want folks to get a better understanding what I think you mean. You can stop me if I'm incorrect. I think what you're talking about is a level of violence that most women don't train for, which is why I have a huge problem with certain folk teaching woman's self-protection, self-defense, but not addressing that kind of violence. So that violence is where my intent isn't just to control, it is to destroy. Now, on the flip side of that, I can show you off air 3 techniques that right off the bat that you're going to say to me would never work in a million years. And I will say to you, sir, I know these techniques work. They've been battle tested time and time again. And everything in the martial arts in me says they shouldn't work, but they do work against what I refer to as a fish. Somebody who's not aware, who will never see it coming. But you get one shot at it, right? So to answer your when we're teaching these women these wrist locks and stuff like that, we have to keep in mind that the attacker that they're preparing for isn't a martial artist, isn't a seasoned fighter, is thinking she's the weaker species, but she's only going to get one shot at it. So we need to keep it simple, stupid.
Yes.
And we have to have her make better decisions.
Yes. I'm 1,000% with you on that. The element of surprise.
Yeah.
And that back in the day was what martial arts was about. I didn't see people with Grandmaster Malik Shabazz on his chest walking down the street, right? Because the guy that's getting ready to rob me sees it too, right? So it was. I understand the business aspect and social media and the way they do what they do, right? You will never see me doing an application on social media, right? I don't use techniques. I use application. Or promoting anybody or any women particularly on that, because I believe that what they do and what they learn should be an element of surprise. If I promote it all the time, look. I don't use that term students. If I look at my students, man, and they, that man that she used to go with 10 years ago that still has a gripe for her is watching too.
Ooh.
And so when he approaches her now, watching her on YouTube, he's going to come a little different at her,
level. Yeah.
So what we put out there, you got to be careful because the sick people are watching too. So I'm like I'm looking through a different lens.
No, I hear what you're saying. No, I like that. But I mean, I like that, and that's why I love these kind of palavers because they help us get better at what we do, right? Because we're educating. No matter how you look at it, I mean, you may not think, but you are. You get people who come to you, and they're basing your life experience. The fact that you have a school, that you have your minkos, you're teaching, you're doing all these things. There's a certain level of ability they expect for you to have. Right. Period. Right? Or you shouldn't be teaching. I mean, actually, believe it or not, why the martial maze exists was based on that. Is that there are too many charlatans out there that are look, every good lie, some of the best lies have the best truth. Right? This guy, he did train with that dude.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Know how many guys I've met claim they've trained with dudes, and then you find out they attended seminars routinely.
Oh.
But in their mind, well, wait a minute. He directly was with me. He showed me this technique. How many times do I have to go to that seminar or these groups of seminars to say that and there's a certain logic there, I guess. And I'm going, I'm kind of nodding, but did that person give you rank, or you just say, well, I never said he gave me rank. I said I trained under him. And you're like, well, wordplay.
Right, yes.
Yes. But his truth is so. But the point I'm making about all of that is no different in regular academia. You have accredited institutions that are still out there, Trump University. And just like that, I lost a handful of listeners. or you have accredited institutions, right?
Right.
Like everywhere else. But you still expect a certain level, right? So as an instructor, as a teacher, having these, like I said, having these kind of talks help us all get better. So if you didn't say it, if you just kind of kept your mouth shut, because now you have me thinking the same thing. I'm like, because I mean, that was my issue with R.O.A.R. right? I mean, R.O.A.R was one of those programs that was supposed to be hidden. Like it was never, like you didn't know where the location was in most schools and college campuses, and it was hidden. And then all of a sudden, somebody put it on YouTube. And it showed exactly what the cops are teaching.
Right.
And how they're teaching
takes away. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing with the BJJ for women, right? I'm watching all these, and I get their marketing tool. Gotta love their marketing tool. And it's the grappling, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, yo, here's my only real issue. And I know somebody who's out there, well, yeah, but I'm a victim of, I've dealt with this. And I'm like, yeah, but here's the thing. All I'm going to say is this. If somebody really wants to get you and they are aware that you can do these things, do you think they're not going to bring an equalizer?
Right.
You know, it's no different with myself. Somebody watches the show. They know I can handle my business. They know I can handle myself.
Yes, so they're going to come different way.
Yeah, I'm going to get shot. They're going to just come out guns blazing.
Yeah.
They're not going to wait and try to physically take me out, you know. And so, again, it's – but as a woman, especially if you're a pretty woman or you're a woman in general, I'm not going to say pretty woman because pretty is in the eye of the beholder.
Right.
But, again, you're putting out how you would do X, Y, Z, and the guy's watching.
Yes,
and
that's the key. See, you know, I've taught like women's rape prevention groups, you know, and it's all by word of mouth. And I tell you why, because I'm not looking for 10,000 people to come, and I'm not looking for $10,000. That's 1 and 2, right? But most importantly, is I respect the privacy of the women, right? And before, in my groups, before I touch anyone, I ask them, is it okay to do it? Yeah. Because a lot of women and those that come attend those groups have been abused.
Well, I was going to get into that real quick.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
They've been abused, whether, you know, or raped, and so they're fragile to touch in certain words, and so there was one group I was teaching that had it was 3 different groups in one, all females, and there was some young girls that were getting ready to go to live on a dorm in college, right, their first year, and I'm teaching them about the good looking captain on the basketball team and the stages of abuse. It's don't jump physically right away. There's stages of abuse, and so I was giving them those applications on how to pick that up, right? Because it don't just start off with him punching you in your mouth.
Well, because grooming takes time. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, but this is so. What I started doing was this is So my program is it took some time, and it was geared around not just working with law enforcement or other, because I always think that's kind of it's good. There's a benefit to there, but I almost feel like sometimes law enforcement gets it wrong. But because they're reactive, they're not proactive, and they're going by who reports what, this, that, and the third. And don't get me wrong, there's still a benefit, there's still knowledge there. But what I'm saying is what we learned is I remember interviewing. So this took a couple of years before I started doing my program, and I'm interviewing a lot of different women who've taken self-defense programs, who've taken R.O.A.R. And first thing, what do you remember? And while they're talking to me, this, that, and the third, I'm watching them make all the mistakes that happened to victims beforehand and stuff like that, and leaving the drink unattended, just all those things because they felt safe. We're at a restaurant, whatever, and stuff like that. You're not really paying attention. So what we really did is we spent more time on the that's why I said there's a difference between self-protection and self-defense. So self-protection is living your life in such a way where violence misses you. Self-defense is all shit hit the fan. But when you're teaching women's, dealing with an altercation, how many times are the women drunk in your class? You understand what I'm saying? And, what do you mean? Well, date rapes happen all the time and stuff like that. It went from consent to not consent. Right. You know what I'm saying? But there's alcohol involved. How many times have you trained somebody who's been slipped a roofie? You know what I'm saying? And stuff like that. Like Rufalin. Rufalin's a real drug. And so what we found is that if I can have you focus on living your life in such a way, right, that part, then the physical part, we don't have to do 5 million techniques.
Well said.
Yeah, I just need you to get away at that
said.
point. But I need you to recognize grooming when it happens. I need you to understand what the difference between transitional spaces are. I need you to apply these best practices and not just do them because I'm asking you to, but just put them in your life. And once they're there, boom.
The red light goes off immediately.
Well, yeah.
So situational awareness, like I was alluding to earlier. That, like, you could be a grandmaster in that and never have to throw a punch or be in the way of one.
Yeah, you know how many martial artists I've heard or even know that have gotten, even myself, because I didn't have good situational awareness. I wasn't paying attention to them dudes looking at me at the bar. You know, I was too busy having a good time with my friends.
Yeah.
And then as I went to the bathroom, they recognized me from a bar I threw them out of 5 years ago. You know what I'm saying?
Because they was on the bad end of that. That's why.
Yeah. And they coming at me some kind of way, and then them being really happy that I had friends. You know what I'm saying? That you know that were paying attention.
And you know, I have to just say that, you know, my mindset in this thinking goes back like decades. I can remember being with a buddy, right? And we're at a bar, let's say a food bar. And he says, we didn't have the cell phones at that time. Like, they was outrageous. This is the 80s. And he said, I'll be right back, man. I'm going to use the phone. And we were by across the street from Project. I said, okay, you know, watch these. We'll be right back. I went with him. He said, nah, I'm all right. I said, nah, bro. I said, I stood back while he's on the phone. And so my antennas have been like, and looking through a different lens for decades. And what I've done now is that I've expanded on it, right? But I've always been that guy that wants to be able to be a step ahead of the guy that's, and so in my teaching, saying all of that with the R.O.A.R, right, is that you should be able to feel like when we get goosebumps, that's something that's happening for a reason. It's not because it's chilly out, right? In the summertime, you're getting goosebumps because something is going on and you need to respond to it. If you have to cross the street and walk down, here's something that Grandmaster Odetta told me, shared with me. She said in one incident, a girl's, let's say, at a gas station, and she was pumping her gas, and a homeless person walked up on her. And she said he asked for money. She yelled out loud, "Does anyone have any change for him? I don't have any money." And that brought all the attention, right? I took that. I told her, thank you. Another situation, a female's walking down the street, and as she's going to her destination, there's a couple of guys walking towards her. So she takes her phone out, and she says loud enough, "Do you see me? I know you see me, but I can't see you. Where are you at? Wave a hand." And so the guys now, whether they was going to do something to her or not, are now knowing that there's someone watching.
Right, there may be somebody there, yeah.
Situational awareness and being able to respond on the dime.
Yes.
Key.
But living your life in such a way.
Perfect.
You know what I'm saying?
Perfect.
All right, yeah, man, brother. Thank you for having being on the show. We definitely had a great time. We learned a lot.
Yes.
You know, we're going to have to, there'll be some bonus material for those because we went way over. We're an hour-long show, and we're approaching 2 hours. So there will be a part A and a part B. But we want to thank Malik Shabazz Hanshi, of Streetology Jutsu here in Atlanta, Georgia. Want to say anything to the crowd?
I want to say thank you for allowing me to be in this position to be on the show. And again, I just want to be, I hope I sent a message out to someone that someone can use this, because my whole thing is about being able to inspire someone else, and that's the way I live my life. So I hope someone can use something that I said in a positive manner for themselves or someone else.
All right. And with that being said, I'm Israel Lopez Sensei, and you've been listening to The Martial Maze.
Thank you.